The process of a Sigma male's disengagement is not characterized by impulsive decisions or dramatic exits. Instead, it unfolds slowly, like a tide that quietly recedes from the shore, deliberate and introspective. It is a psychological and emotional odyssey, one that begins long before any visible signs appear to the outside observer. To truly comprehend this phenomenon, one must understand the unique internal architecture of a man who functions on a distinct frequency, one where observation outweighs reaction, clarity transcends emotion, and inner peace becomes his most valued form of wealth. His quietness is not a lack of emotion, but rather a sanctuary for thought. His distance is not an act of punishment, but a method of self-preservation. This exploration seeks to unravel the complex layer behind his silent withdrawal, illuminating the inner mechanisms that guide one of the most misunderstood acts of human behavior, the Sigma male's quiet departure. 1. The genesis of silence, from engagement to observation. The depth of his initial connection. A Sigma male does not enter any connection, be it friendship, love, or collaboration, with emotional detachment or indifference. Quite the opposite. His initial engagement is often rich with sincerity and depth. When he chooses to let someone into his world, it is because he has recognized something rare and meaningful, a spark of authenticity, a shared wavelength, or a promise of mutual evolution. His attention is not shallow or performative. It is genuine and deeply focused. He listens beyond mere words. He hears the cadence of a voice, senses the energy between silences, and notices the truths that linger between the lines. He studies not only what is said, but how it is said and what remains unspoken. His loyalty is not broadcast loudly, but demonstrated quietly, through consistent presence and subtle acts of care. The analytical observer. Even as he invests emotionally, the Sigma male's mind operates in the background with an almost scientific precision. He is always observing, not suspiciously, but intuitively collecting data on the dynamics of the relationship. He measures energy, reciprocity, and respect, constantly evaluating whether the bond is balanced or draining. This is not born from distrust, but from a deep-seated desire for equilibrium. He seeks to understand, does this connection nourish my spirit, or slowly deplete it? The answer does not arrive through one defining incident, but through a series of subtle patterns, the overlooked promises, the quiet dismissals, the one-sided exchanges, and the moments where his peace is compromised by another's chaos. Each of these moments becomes a data point, meticulously stored within the archives of his mind. The quiet test of alignment. When the Sigma male detects a misalignment, his instinct is not to confront or dramatize. He does not sound alarms or stage emotional protests. Instead, he extends patience. He understands that people are imperfect, that communication wavers, and that good intentions can be cloaked by stress or misunderstanding. In this phase, he may subtly offer chances for recalibration. His communication becomes more intentional. His silence is slightly heavier, each serving as a gentle mirror, inviting the other person to recognize the imbalance. He might share his thoughts calmly, not to accuse, but to invite awareness. It is a quiet test of character, given not from a place of pride or resentment, but from hope, the hope that the connection can restore its natural rhythm of respect and reciprocity. These moments are graceful opportunities, often unnoticed by those who receive them. To the Sigma, they represent the final olive branches before he begins to withdraw inwardly, the prelude to withdrawal. If these subtle corrections go unacknowledged, the Sigma male begins to shift from engagement to observation, from active participation to silent evaluation. His energy, once open and giving, starts to turn inward. He does not retreat to manipulate or to wound. He retreats because he recognizes a continued exposure to imbalance corrodes his inner peace. In silence, he regains clarity. In solitude, he reclaims his power. This stage marks the beginning of his psychological disengagement, though the world around him may still see him as present. Inside, however, he is already walking away, not in body, but in spirit. 2. The quiet calculation, when silence becomes a diagnostic tool. The Sigma male's withdrawal does not occur impulsively or as a reaction to a single moment of disappointment. It emerges when subtle inconsistencies and small betrayals accumulate, when the data points of disillusionment begin to connect into a visible pattern. This marks the beginning of what can be called a quiet calculation, a stage of calm, methodical introspection that precedes emotional departure. To the untrained eye, This shift may seem confusing or even contradictory. Observers may interpret his sudden stillness as moodiness, aloofness, or passive aggression, unaware that something far more deliberate is unfolding beneath the surface. The Sigma male is not retreating out of fragility or emotional collapse. He is strategically conserving his energy. He pulls back his emotional and mental resources, not as an act of avoidance, but to establish a neutral space where he can view the relationship with objectivity and precision. Silence as a method of understanding. In this phase, silence becomes his most powerful diagnostic instrument. Words can be manipulated, emotions can be exaggerated, and intentions can be disguised, but silence reveals what conversation conceals. By stepping back and ceasing to contribute to the emotional noise, no explanations, no justifications, no reassurance, he creates what seems like an empty void. Yet this intentional quiet is anything but empty. It becomes a mirror, reflecting the unfiltered truth of those around him. Without his engagement to buffer or soften the atmosphere, the true nature of the connection is forced into view. The Sigma observes with patience and precision, asking quietly within himself, how does this person respond to my silence? Do they seek to understand? Or do they seek to control? Do they approach with empathy, curiosity, and respect? Or with accusation, insecurity, and need for dominance? This stage becomes a kind of emotional litmus test. The other person's reactions to his silence often reveal far more than their words ever did. The revelation within the reaction. Those who truly care, who operate from emotional intelligence and respect, will often respond to the Sigma's silence with gentle inquiry and patience. They will recognize the need for space, and perhaps even appreciate the calm that comes with quiet reflection. Their response is rooted in understanding, not fear. However, others will react differently. Some become defensive or confrontational, unable to tolerate what they perceive as rejection. Their discomfort with stillness exposes a dependence on external validation and emotional drama. They demand explanations. Why are you so quiet? What did I do? Why won't you talk to me? Revealing a self-centered desire to make his silence about their own unease. To the Sigma male, these reactions are deeply instructive. They confirm or disprove his growing suspicions. The silence was never meant as punishment. It was a test of resonance, a way to see whether the connection could survive without constant noise or reassurance. Weighing words against actions. As the quiet period extends, the Sigma male begins to compare spoken intentions with lived behavior. He measures the weight of promises against the substance of deeds. Someone may have repeatedly declared loyalty, affection, or understanding, but how do they behave in the absence of engagement? If they grow restless, impatient, or resentful, their actions betray the conditional nature of their care. True loyalty, he believes, is not measured in presence alone, but in the ability to remain steady through silence. The Sigma's stillness reveals who is genuinely aligned with him, and who is only sustained by constant attention or control. In this way, his silence becomes a filter of truth. Those who can sit with him in quiet acceptance are those whose energy harmonizes with his own. Those who crumble under the weight of stillness expose the fragility of their connection. The calm observer, one of the defining qualities of the Sigma male, is his refusal to be drawn into emotional chaos. When the other person reacts with volatility or blame, he does not engage in argument or defense. Instead, he observes from a distance, mentally, emotionally, and sometimes physically. He does not wrestle in the mud of misunderstanding or drama. He remains calm, detached, watching how the storm unfolds from the quiet safety of introspection. This composure unsettles many, for it denies them the familiar patterns of emotional sparring they may use to maintain control. His serenity becomes their mirror, reflecting their inner restlessness back to them. The crucible of decision. As this silent phase deepens, the Sigma male's internal question shifts from curiosity to conclusion. What began as "does this connection nourish me?" evolves into the more decisive, "can this connection ever truly nourish me, given what I now know?" It is in this crucible of stillness that his final decision is formed. By the time he speaks again, or chooses to act, his conclusion is already solidified within him. The words he may later share are not part of an open debate, but rather the articulation of a verdict long reached in silence. His withdrawal, therefore, is never impulsive. It is a result of careful emotional accounting, a process of separating illusion from authenticity. And once this inner calculation is complete, There's rarely a reversal. His silence, once diagnostic, becomes final. 3. The withdrawal of energy, the unspoken final warning. If the quiet calculation phase is the Sigma male's act of diagnosis, an inward search for truth, then the withdrawal of energy is a prognosis delivered not in words, but in silence. It is a moment when decision begins to take form, when emotional clarity transforms into quiet action. This is not yet the final goodbye, but it is a last, unspoken warning before the inevitable separation. In this stage, the Sigma male begins a gradual, intentional retreat, a slow retraction of emotional investment and energetic presence. It is not a theatrical departure or a sudden disappearance, but a methodical and compassionate detachment, carried out with precision and quiet dignity. One could call the dismantling of invisible bridges, the steady undoing of connections that once pulsed with mutual energy, the gradual fading of presence. The process of withdrawal rarely announces itself. It begins subtly, almost imperceptibly. The Sigma's communication patterns start to shift. The once frequent messages taper off. The quick replies stretch into pauses, and the conversations that once flowed with ease now feel measured and brief. The warmth in his voice cools to polite civility. His laughter, once spontaneous and full of life, becomes restrained, as though filtered through emotional distance. The focus and attention he once gave so freely, his ability to listen, engage, and understand, now seems redirected elsewhere. He stops sharing his inner world, the dreams, the private reflections, the quiet thoughts that were once the bridge between two souls. The connection that once felt alive with color and depth begins to fade into a palette of grays. What was once a vibrant exchange becomes a cordial, almost professional interaction. This is not coldness for cruelty's sake. It is self-preservation through emotional minimalism. The subtle signals of disengagement. To the person on the receiving end, something intangible begins to shift. The air feels different, cooler, lighter, thinner. The emotional gravity that once drew them into the Sigma's orbit seems to weaken. They may not be able to articulate it, but they feel it, the sense that something once alive is quietly dying. Some interpret this withdrawal as emotional manipulation, a way to provoke concern or regain control. Others mistake it for passive aggression or detachment born of disinterest. Yet in truth, it is none of these. The Sigma male is not playing a game. He is softly announcing the end, communicating through silence what words could never fully express. This stage is not meant to punish. Rather, it is a form of emotional mercy, a gentle preparation for the inevitable. By withdrawing gradually, he spares both himself and the other person from the shock of sudden rupture. Each step back is a way of cushioning the fall, allowing the relationship to fade naturally rather than explode dramatically. The quiet untangling of bonds. During this stage, the Sigma male engages in what could be called energetic decluttering. He begins to reclaim the parts of himself that were once freely shared, the emotional energy, mental focus, and spiritual openness that form the foundation of the connection. He does this not out of bitterness, but from a need to restore internal balance. The more he recognizes the imbalance in reciprocity, the more he begins to detach. He is silently untying the emotional knots that once bound him to the other person. Each small act of withdrawal, a missed call, a shorter message, a polite smile, is a quiet act of liberation. To him, this is not cruelty, it is clarity in motion. It is his way of reclaiming his own peace, his autonomy, and his spiritual grounding. The final test of awareness. Paradoxically, the Sigma male's fading presence also serves as one last, unspoken test, a chance for the other person to demonstrate awareness, empathy, and care. His withdrawal is a question asked without words. Can you sense what is happening? Can you feel the space widening between us? If the other person recognizes a change, reflects upon it, and responds with genuine concern, the Sigma may pause, reassess, and even consider re-engagement. But if they remain oblivious, if they do not even notice his gradual vanishing, it confirms a painful truth he has already suspected. The connection was one-sided. For the Sigma male, indifference is a final confirmation. When the other fails to notice a fading of his essence, he knows that his absence will cause no real void, and that is all the validation he needs to finally let go. The silence that speaks the goodbye. By the time his energy has fully withdrawn, the Sigma male's decision is complete, even if unspoken. He no longer argues, no longer explains. and no longer feels a need to justify his silence. His quiet departure is a conclusion of a long internal dialogue, the final act in a process of emotional discernment. To the outside world, it might appear as though he simply drifted away. But in truth, every step of this withdrawal was deliberate, a compassionate yet firm closing of a chapter. His silence was not avoidance. It was communication in its purest, most profound form. His fading presence is the last signal, the final whisper before the door closes gently. It says, without saying, I am beginning to leave. This is your chance to see, to feel, to understand the weight of what is being lost. But because it is not loud or dramatic, most never hear it, until the silence becomes permanent. 4. The inner resolution, choosing forgiveness and reclaiming peace. The quiet war within. As the Sigma male steps back from the chaos of external conflict, another, far more profound battle begins, the one within himself. Detachment from the outer world is only half of the healing process. The real transformation unfolds in silence, deep within his psyche. The Sigma male is not a man who clings to rage or cultivates grudges like trophies of pride. He recognizes the futility of carrying bitterness, that resentment is a slow-acting poison, one that corrodes the soul of the one who holds it, not the one it's aimed at. To him, anger is a weight, a set of invisible chains that tie him to the very pain he seeks to escape. And because he treasures his inner freedom above all else, he knows that peace cannot coexist with resentment. The conscious act of forgiveness. Thus begins a deliberate and deeply conscious act, the act of forgiveness. But for the Sigma, forgiveness is not about absolving the offender or reopening a door that he has intentionally closed. It is not reconciliation, nor is it a gesture of moral superiority. It is, instead, a personal declaration of freedom, a decision to sever the emotional hooks that have been lodged in his heart. He sits with his pain, not running from it or numbing it. He allows the anger, disappointment, and betrayal to surface fully, studying each emotion with calm detachment. He dissects every sting, every trigger, tracing each feeling back to its root. In this introspection, he transforms raw emotion into understanding. Forgiveness becomes a ritual of release, a way to extract the venom without reopening the wound. He does not forgive because the other person has earned it. He forgives because he refuses to let anyone else occupy space in his mind rent-free. The peace that follows is his reward, a peace that no apology could ever bring. Emotional mastery and inner alchemy. This process is nothing less than a display of emotional mastery, a form of psychological alchemy in which pain is transmuted into wisdom. By forgiving, he neutralizes the emotional charge attached to the experience. The event that once burned hot with betrayal now cools into memory, no longer a weapon that can be used against him, but a lesson he carries forward. The individual who wronged him loses all control over his inner world. Their actions no longer define his emotional state. What remains is clarity, a calm that is unshakable because it has been earned through introspection and self-awareness. His emotions no longer command him. He commands them. The peace after the storm. By the time he reaches this point, the storm inside has long subsided. When he finally withdraws, there is no anger left in his tone, no bitterness behind his silence. His calm demeanor is not apathy, it is resolution. The external detachment merely mirrors the serenity he has already achieved internally. When he says, "It's fine," it is not dismissal or pretense, it is truth. The matter, for him, is closed. Forgiveness, for the Sigma male, is not the reopening of a door but the sealing of it, the quiet click of closure that echoes with finality. It is not the prelude to a new chapter, but the period that ends the last sentence of an old one. Through forgiveness, he does not reconcile with the other. He reconciles with himself. That is his true victory, not in winning arguments, but in regaining his peace. 5. The final act, the quiet goodbye and the reclamation of self. The subtle moment of departure. When the end finally arrives, it does so not with thunder but with silence. There is no grand finale, no emotional outburst, and certainly no theatrical confrontation. For the Sigma male, departure is never a spectacle. It is an evolution. The moment of goodbye is not marked by words but by absence, not by an announcement but by a quiet shift in energy that only becomes noticeable once he is gone. Those around him rarely realize when the departure begins. It starts in small, almost imperceptible ways, a delay in response, a missed meeting, a quiet withdrawal from conversations that once flowed easily. The Sigma male does not slam doors, he simply stops walking through them. The text thread that once buzzed with his insight or humor now rests in silence, not because he wishes to punish, but because he has already detached emotionally and mentally long before the physical absence takes form. His leaving is not an act of rebellion, but the natural consequence of a soul that values peace more than presence in a place that no longer feels right. The empty space he leaves behind. His absence speaks louder than his presence ever could. The empty chair where he once sat becomes a quiet symbol of what has been lost. Not just a person, but a presence. His energy, once subtle yet grounding, leaves a vacuum that others may not immediately understand but cannot ignore. The air itself feels different. Conversations lack depth, laughter loses its authenticity, and even the environment feels slightly hollow. This is not intentional cruelty on his part. It is simply the echo of authenticity withdrawing from a space that no longer deserves it. Every previous stage, the observation, the internal reckoning, the emotional release, has already prepared him for this. The physical act of walking away is merely the closing gesture of a decision that was made long ago in the quiet chambers of his mind. Leaving without malice, staying true to principle. His exit is not designed to teach lessons or cause regret. It is not revenge masked maturity. The Sigma male leaves because staying would compromise his inner integrity, something he refuses to do. To remain in an environment that drains his spirit would mean betraying his own code of self-respect. So he honors himself in the most dignified way possible by leaving quietly. His silence is not empty, it is a statement. It says everything words cannot. I have understood what this is, and I have accepted that it no longer serves me. It is an act of deep acceptance, not resentment. In walking away, he draws an invisible boundary that says, "My peace is sacred, and I will not sacrifice it for the comfort of anyone else." This kind of exit is not a retreat but a reclamation of energy, of dignity, of self. The serenity that follows the exit. What follows is not loneliness, but serenity. The Sigma male does not dwell on what was lost, nor does he replay the past looking for closure. His closure is internal. It was achieved through forgiveness long before he walked away. Now, there's only stillness, the quiet satisfaction of a man who has chosen himself. There are no nostalgic glances backward, no yearning for what could have been. The memories that remain are catalogued, understood, and stored as lessons rather than scars. The Sigma male does not hate those he leaves behind. He simply detaches from the energy that no longer aligns with his path. He may even wish the other person well, but from a distance so vast it cannot be bridged. His compassion remains intact, but his boundaries are immovable. The door he once opened to others is not merely closed, it is sealed, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. He understands that reopening it would only invite back the same cycles he worked so hard to transcend. His silence, therefore, is not the sound of loss but the hum of equilibrium restored. Conclusion, the echo of silence, the strength in stillness. In a world that confuses volume with power and drama with passion, the Sigma male's silence is profound contradiction. His quiet goodbye is not weakness, it is mastery. It is a rare form of strength that requires no validation, no witnesses, and no applause. His restraint, his calm, and his refusal to engage in emotional theatrics are not indifference but evidence of deep emotional sovereignty. The world often overlooks this kind of power because it makes no noise. Yet, those who have experienced it, those who have stood in the emptiness left by his departure, know that his silence carries more truth than any words could. It is an unspoken reflection, forcing others to confront their own behavior, their own failures, and the respect they fail to offer. The mirror of absence. His absence becomes a mirror, reflecting back everything that was missing in the relationship: honesty, reciprocity, and genuine respect. There is no anger in his disappearance, only clarity. The stillness he leaves behind becomes an undeniable reminder how rare his energy truly was. To lose it is to feel the gravity of authenticity that once held everything together. For him, leaving is not defeat, it is transcendence. He departs not as a broken man, but as one reborn through self-awareness and emotional discipline. The silence that follows him is not emptiness, it is a declaration of freedom. He carries forward only one priceless possession, his peace. And in that peace, He finds his highest form of power, the kind that needs no witness, the kind that cannot be taken, and the kind that defines a Sigma male's ultimate liberation. Do these ideas resonate with you? If you found yourself nodding along or reflecting deeply on the traits and experiences we explored in this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts. The Sigma male mindset isn't often talked about openly, and your perspective, whether you identify with it personally or have encountered in others, adds valuable depth to the conversation. Drop a comment below and let me know. Which part hit home the most for you? Have you seen these traits in yourself or someone you know? Your insights help build a community where authenticity and growth are prioritized over popularity and performance. If you're drawn to this kind of introspective, no-nonsense content around Sigma males, psychological strength, emotional intelligence, and high-value living, there's more waiting for you. Explore the other videos on this channel for deeper dives, actionable insights, and raw truth that cut through the noise. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay sharp, stay grounded, and stay unapologetically real. Until next time.